Are you in? I'm certainly in. I'm excited to be here to talk to you guys because I think we as an industry have an enormous opportunity in front of us. And we're at an inflection point in storage penetration into computing. And there's an enormous pace of innovation that continues, that's been going on, that is continuing today. And you'll hear at Storage Visions as well as CES, the level and pace at which technology is evolving is happening very, very quickly. And I wanted to use one example here of that. And Intel, I joined a little bit before the SSD on the left, but Intel's been involved in driving the base semiconductor technology, system level implementation of that, and interfaces at a higher level for quite some time. And it is interesting to step back occasionally and look. And I have one of the original SSDs that Intel produced over about 2 decades ago, about 20 years ago. This is a PATA-based 12 megabyte SSD. And then on the right, you see a modern SSD from Intel. That's about 25,000 times the density of the SSDs that we were delivering when we first started in this business 20 years ago. And phenomenal evolution over that period of time, and we see it impacting those things around us. And the previous panel members mentioned the revolution that's occurred in the camera market and image storage. Basically, it's changed imaging forever. What's going on in the music industry as well has changed music storage forever. And we are at a tipping point in traditional computing. Notebooks and servers are just now at the front end of that transition that's occurred in cameras and music, right? So we have about a 5% attach rate. Only about 5% of notebook computers that go out the door today have SSDs in them. So we in the industry have an enormous opportunity to impact the IT folks around us and the end user folks around us, and we can grow at phenomenal rates over the next 5 years and still have not completely penetrated the computing space. So there's an opportunity for us here, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the change that non-volatile storage has happened. So this is there's some technical elements to this conference, so we felt we needed to throw some sort of log graph into the presentation to bring some technology to it. And what you see here is the improvement, generational improvement of various elements of the technology and the platform over the last couple of decades. And what you see is we have made phenomenal progress in the performance and bandwidth in various stages of the platform. The CPU's interface to cache, the cache interface to memory, network, and storage. Right? Over the last few decades, the industry should be incredibly proud of the progress that we've made. But it has been more in the bandwidth space than in the latency space because of some of the physics involved in moving things around. But when we bring non-volatile storage when we bring flash memory into the storage hierarchy in non-volatile storage, we see a tremendous shift in the latency, and that's why it's such a phenomenal game changer. The raw I/O bandwidth is tremendous, but as is the latency. And those of you who've seen in the client space, we've seen the Beach Ball and the Apple platforms as you're trying to load applications or load files, recognize that, or the Hourglass in the Windows space. And it reflects itself in the experience that the end user has. And we're going to see a lot of talk this week at CES after Storage Visions about the Ultrabook and the impact that the Ultrabook will have on end user experiences. The boot time, the resume time, file load time, the responsiveness of these platforms going along with extended battery life and thinner form factors is phenomenal. And a big part of that is driven by the non-volatile storage opportunity. And it impacts benchmarks. And so you can see here is a PCMark Vantage view of the world, and on the far right, as you would expect to see tremendous improvement on an SSD over a hard disk, right? That's not shocking. But you also see it in the applications. And you see productivity in gaming, and the overall performance of an SSD as an upgrade into a platform is bigger than just about anything else you could do in the platform to improve the user experience. And actually, when you look at the actual, not beyond the benchmarks, when you look at the gameplay ability, guys like Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed doing some optimization in their game, allowing much smoother, richer experience, and actually giving you a competitive advantage in the game where the horse or the person moving through the game can move at a much faster rate because they're able to get data off the storage device. So competitive advantage for you guys who are gaming. And it's up to us in the industry to continue that innovation. This is phenomenal improvement over solid state, over hard disks, spinning disks, but we need to continue to innovate. And we have been innovating inside of Intel, and we're on our next generation SATA 3 device. And I wanted to, because you guys came out, we wanted to give you a little sneak peek of the performance that we're going to see on our next generation SATA 3 device. That's in production now. We're stocking the channels, and you'll see an announcement for that later this quarter. But we'll see the innovation continue, and we will see dramatic improvements in performance over our previous generation 320 series product, where we're not at the end of innovation in solid state storage, and expect to see that to continue. So you will get, as an enthusiast in the platform, as an enthusiast, as a gamer, you should expect to see tremendous performance improvements, and every enthusiast platform should have a solid state disk. There's no reason why anyone who's an enthusiast shouldn't have a solid state disk in their platform, because it gives you that great experience, but also allows you to do it in ways that are funner than ever with your friends. And if we look at corporate, we see a tremendous opportunity there as well. Beyond the enthusiast, if you think about the IT guy's challenge in corporate, he has to keep the users happy with performance, but it's important that we were talking about backups earlier and keep the platform secure. So he has a very difficult challenge, but he also has a broader view. So if he's looking at hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of platforms in his environment, he can actually realize the benefit of the stability and the quality of these platforms in lower total cost of ownership. So the IT guy has a view beyond his own personal use and can see the benefit across a fleet of PCs. And we see that when we look at this. So this technology is one of these fantastic win-win technologies for the IT professional, where he can make his boss happy, right? So he can make the CIO happy with lower total cost of ownership of the fleet through reduced failure rates, repair rates of the platforms, and improved performance to deliver the manageability and security that they're looking for in keeping the business running and keeping the business secure. And they can also make the IT, they can also make their end users happy with that higher performance, more stability, keeping the platform running smoothly, faster boot time, faster resume time, longer battery life with SSDs. So this is one of the few technologies for IT that's a win-win. They're not coming to the end user and enforcing security and encryption on them at a loss. They bring this technology and they get benefits both for the CIO as well as the end user. And that's important because the IT professional has a very difficult challenge. He all too often is forced to deliver technology to help keep the business safe and running smoothly at the cost of the end user. And we as an industry have an opportunity to make those IT professionals heroes, to get them the ability to make the business a better place, keep the business running more smoothly, more secure, and faster, as well as make the end user happy. And I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to share a few of these with you, a viewpoint of a couple of IT heroes who are embracing technology quickly and deploying this exciting new technology into the environment. And this one is GlaxoSmithKline, who's a global leader in healthcare products. And they have about 90,000 clients in their system, and they had a difficult challenge ahead of them where they needed to increase the security of the data in their environment while keeping the end users happy and deploying new devices in their environment all at the same time. And David took a unique approach to this, and he's going to share with you some of the things he did, some of the experiences that he had, and how he overcame some of those obstacles.
My name is David Peltzer. I'm the Vice President of IT and User Systems and Services at GlaxoSmithKline. One of the biggest decision points for us was to require solid-state drives. We started early in 2011, and the customer experience has been fantastic. First, I got the finance people off by giving a few critical people the tech refresh. They shut up pretty quickly. I then refreshed our biggest, loudest strategist, who happened to be a big Apple fanboy. His response was, I hate to admit it, but I love my PC. Another great example is our US sales force. They decided to use the iPad as their selling device, but they also realized that they still needed a PC for their CRM and expense reporting. They came to us and asked if we were the cheapest possible configuration we could supply. They compared that cheapest possible model with and without Intel SSD. The sales force, in front of physicians, government agents, hospital and insurance administrators all day, they are not necessarily afforded a lot of time, so speed is critical. Our management looked at that and made the same decision as us in IT, that for a little more money, they would rather have the speed and security of Intel SSD on their PC than a cheaper hard disk. I have said and believe that standardizing on the Intel SSD at GSK was one of the best decisions in my 20+ years here. Some of my colleagues have even said it was my only good decision. I think we got a head start on the next generation of PCs based on SSD.
I think David is a great example of today's IT hero, where he's out digging up the latest technology and figuring out how to apply that in a way that helps his business be more successful. And he showed an example of that risk-taking, but also how he overcame the obstacles, the selling obstacles of implementing SSDs inside his environment. And they're broadly deploying inside their environment. And the initial upfront cost was easy for him to overcome by showing people the benefit of that. And he didn't talk yet, even there, about the reduced cost of ownership as well. That was basically driven by the user experience. And we'll talk more about cost of ownership later. In this enterprise space, they have a very parallel experience there, where SSDs can introduce SSDs into the hierarchy of storage and in the storage and server space, and bring a dramatic reduction in power, in compute footprint, increase the performance, and reduce the total cost of ownership in an enterprise as well. And if you look at a high-performance computing application of that, when you look at the entire solution, you are able to take, with a much smaller footprint, smaller number of drives, actually increase the I/O performance of it and make a dramatic reduction in the overall square footage in the data center for that compute workload and the electricity usage of that workload. And you can use those benefits to either save money for a given application, or more importantly, in today's IT data center world, they can bring more services, more compute capability into a given electrical and square foot footprint in the data center. So they, by attacking certain applications, they can grow the capability of their data center within their prescribed footprint. And we see that happening with replacement of high-performance HDDs. So we continue to see, we believe there will continue to be high-speed hard disks sold into the enterprise, but there will be a dramatic consolidation of those in high-performance workloads into SSDs at a very, about a 7-to-1 ratio. And the enterprise storage computing environment is also evolving in a way that better supports SSDs. So the traditional compute workload environment supports the integration of SSDs well, but also the evolution of storage, where we're moving from structured data in traditional single-site locations to unstructured data in a way where applications can scale out, and you can build increased performance and service of your services by adding more application servers and deal with unstructured data in a cache manner. And that type of hierarchical storage architecture enables more rapid adoption of SSDs as well. And we're seeing IT heroes around the world take advantage of that. Lightshow is in South Africa, an example of a analytics services company, and then CNTV is a China-based company. And we, inside of Intel, have been aggressively deploying SSDs in our enterprise. And I'll show you two examples of IT heroes who figured out a way to do it in a software development environment, and then again in a private cloud environment, where you came to the realization as you're doing tons of virtualization in a private cloud environment, your I/O access become much more random, and the performance of the SSDs have a huge impact on deployments in private clouds and public clouds.
Previously, on this same platform, we have data that we drive the benchmark on the industry standard magnetic drive system. And this is a big rack on the back of our lab that has, we're using 90 drives, okay? We're using 6 bays, each bay has 15 magnetic drives, and remember, these are fast SCSI drives, 15K RPM. When we figured out with this benchmark, we discovered that the 5 Intel SSD 710 series setup with only 5 of those drives would match the performance of this magnetic drive in exactly the same server, with exactly the same configuration, with the exact same software stack. And the performance on the 5 Intel SSD 710 series was actually a little bit better than the magnetic drives.
I'm in the enterprise private cloud lab here in Folsom, and we have a very large virtualization environment. One of the things that we ran into in that environment with hundreds and sometimes thousands of virtual machines, very small virtual machines, is they demand a lot of I/O, and when you start to consolidate those into single data stores, the I/O is very random, very hard for Stan to keep up. And the Intel SSDs have allowed us to create kind of Frankensteins, so home-built iSCSI-based targets over 10 gig Ethernet, which allows us to get a pure random workload out of the SSD.
So two IT heroes embracing technology to solve significant problems, taking their hard disk storage costs and power down from 90 to 5, solving that bottleneck that he had on random I/O workloads with rotating media by migrating to solid-state storage in private cloud virtualized environment. And we as an industry need to continue to innovate and work to support these IT heroes. We need to continue to innovate our SSD storage. We are at the tipping point with only about 5% attach rate to client devices and in the server space. We have an enormous opportunity to provide better solutions that enable our customers to more quickly deploy those. We need to continue to work on the process semiconductor technology to get to higher enterprise endurance performance more quickly to support computing applications on the leading edge of process technology more quickly. We need to embrace the standards that are coming out in the industry around new interfaces like NVM Express. And we need to do a great job marketing these devices so that we can raise awareness. It is really shocking to many of us at how low the penetration is of solid-state storage in the computing environment, given the value proposition that it provides. And we need to work together to raise awareness of that. The SNIA website has a great TCO calculator for folks to look at. We need to make it easy for people to deploy and understand the value proposition. And we as an industry need to work to continue to provide that quality and stability value proposition. When we look at overcoming the initial price obstacle for a higher priced SSD, it's critically important that the quality of those SSDs be high, that the failure rate of those SSDs be extremely low. Because one of the benefits in that TCO is having that order of magnitude lower failure rate and reducing the support costs in an enterprise environment. I want to, we have done, inside of Intel IT, our folks have done an enormous amount of deployment of SSDs in our environment. In fact, I've been working on it for about the past 5 years to the point where Intel in our client space is 100% SSDs across all of our 90,000 employees. so we have great data sets associated with deploying that and what happens when you make that kind of transition in your environment. And we have some great data sets on what happens in servers as well. And I wanted to share with you a little bit of feedback from the IT heroes that did that inside of Intel, who didn't wait for the proof, that actually went and aggressively adopted that SSD technology in Florence.
When we introduced solid-state drives in large quantities 4 or 5 years ago, it was a dramatic change for us in terms of what we deliver to our employees. It gave us a huge shift in terms of reliability of the platforms. We now have 96% reduced hardware failures due to storage. The reliability of the platform translated directly into employee productivity. And in addition, the performance gains were what allowed us to move forward with our goal of encrypting every single system at Intel. It allowed us to have that performance boost to support that without impacting their productivity again. And then one other big factor for us was it gave us the ability to extend the performance of the battery life. So we're a very mobile company, and from a mobility perspective, it gave us that extra push.
So one of our big challenges was deploying software-based whole drive encryption. At the same time, we were implementing Windows 7. By deploying solid-state drives at the same time, the enormous performance benefit of solid-state drives, along with the new operating system, almost completely masked the impact of software-based encryption. People were getting new PCs with solid-state drives, and we're thrilled with the performance. Pretty unaware or unimpacted by the software-based whole drive encryption. So we got the security benefits along with the employee productivity.
And so with SSDs, when we looked at them and we started bringing them in, we said, okay, let's compare and contrast to the OEM offerings as traditional storage platform. We looked at the difference in battery cycle counts through like the mobile arm tests, these type of things. And we saw that battery cycles were less on SSDs. We saw that performance was greater on SSD. But we also saw the reliability was greater. And we just completed our 1-year survey of our environment and found out that the reliability numbers actually came in much better than what we predicted a year ago. So to justify it, we said we could shrink our failures from 5% in the environment down to 1%. And we're actually seeing it's coming in way less than 1% in our environment. So reliability is a key thing for the enterprise. And so being able to give that 100% uptime and guarantee performance for the employees. So it's not just about being up all the time, it's also that the drive continues to perform. That's something that's huge for us, especially with SSDs. So we're at over 80,000 deployed so far. We've matched it with our Windows 7 deployment, and we're not looking back. It's a consistent technology we spec in platforms moving forward. I'm an IT hero.
So I'd like to thank the IT heroes that volunteered to share their experiences with you. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to what we had to say, and I'd like to thank you for being part of the industry that is going to change the way the world computes. And with that, I'd like to say we're ready. Thank you.